They've copied Saylor from MicroStrategy, and now there's a really strange trend. Companies are taking their money out of US stocks and securities and putting it into Bitcoin. There's a ton of news about the debt crisis in the US, more and more all the time. And in case you haven't noticed, the debt is really bad. It's truly catastrophic in the US. Not just a little bit. That's why companies and institutions are now investing in Bitcoin. And then we also have news about companies that are actually putting their money into Bitcoin and announcing that they are buying more Bitcoin or will buy more and also want to buy more. But these numbers mean something because this wouldn't just happen for no reason. You might remember that MicroStrategy originally only wanted to invest smaller amounts in Bitcoin, like 10, 15, or 20 million at different times. But then they bought Bitcoin worth $1.3 billion. And everyone was totally surprised that MicroStrategy, or rather Michael Saylor, did that. They then had about 200,000 Bitcoin and announced their 2021 plan. They wanted to raise $21 billion each over 2 years to buy more Bitcoin. 21 billion in the first year and then another 21 billion in the second year. That was pretty crazy because regular people can never accumulate that much Bitcoin or of course raise that much money. And I still find it a bit strange that people don't realize what's happening right now, how limited all of this is, and that these companies are doing everything they can to buy as much Bitcoin as possible. And the fact that people still don't understand this is confusing. Then they announce that they have a new plan. So MicroStrategy announces this as well. In addition to the 21-21 plan, they are going to implement an 84 plan. You guessed it right.
They're going to raise $84 billion to buy even more Bitcoin?
And I say it's strange that with news like this, the price of Bitcoin doesn't go up. Now just imagine a company announcing that it's going to invest $21 billion in Apple stock. The price of Apple shares would skyrocket because people would just follow along and invest there. And the same goes for any other stock as well. But with Bitcoin, the price doesn't go up at all, even though companies are announcing plans to invest huge amounts. And that's really strange. Think about that. And the craziest thing about all of this, as I said before, is that something fishy is going on. You don't just go from 10 million, 15 million, or 20 million to $500 million, then to 1.2 billion, and finally to 84 billion. That doesn't just happen by itself. Unless you have insider knowledge or some kind of advantage that you get, which no one else has. Maybe others know about it too, but then they're just as rich as you are. And you don't reach those kinds of sums, nor do you announce that you want to accumulate that much, unless you know that something big is happening behind the scenes. Then there's another company called Metaplanet. Maybe you've already heard of them. Probably they've been involved in the Bitcoin market for about 1.5 or 2 years now. Metaplanet is a company from Tokyo that became known because they were the second or third company. There were others before, but they got the most attention. They announced that they would buy Bitcoin and their purchases were in the range of $500,000, 1.2 million, 2.4 million, 3.3 million. So in that range, that was already a lot, no question about it. 3 million is really a lot of money, but it still wasn't in the billions, not like MicroStrategy. Then they came out with a new plan. The plan was to buy 10,000 Bitcoin, and a lot of people thought, what? Where did that come from? How is it that before you only bought Bitcoin for $1 million? Honestly, 10,000 Bitcoin is an insane amount of Bitcoin. And a few weeks later, they announced their plan for the next year. The 10,000 are for this year, and next year, they want to buy even more. A total of 21,000 Bitcoin, and of course, they want to own them as well. And that's just crazy. An enormous amount. And remember, Bitcoin is limited, and 21,000 Bitcoin are basically taken off the table for the richest people on the planet. And the average person can't even afford 0.01 Bitcoin right now. Do you realize how crazy that is? When you hear these numbers over and over again, and when MicroStrategy has 600,000 Bitcoin, the average person doesn't even have $1,000 to buy even 0.01 Bitcoin. And for Michael Saylor, Bitcoin is the greatest transformation. And let's take a look at that now, because that's exactly what we're experiencing right now.
Bitcoin represents the greatest digital transformation of the 21st century. It represents digital capital. Global wealth is distributed across assets that provide utility and others that preserve capital. But risk is destroying trillions of dollars of that capital every single year, and investors are turning to digital capital in the form of Bitcoin in order to avoid that risk. Digital capital is economically and technically superior to physical capital and represents a revolutionary advance in capital preservation. The asset class itself is growing from trillions to hundreds of trillions of dollars, and it is backed by digital power as well as political and economic power. Bitcoin is the best asset you can own. The numbers speak for themselves. It makes much more sense to buy Bitcoin than to buy back your own stock, or to hold Bitcoin rather than holding bonds. If you want to outperform, you're going to need Bitcoin. Luckily, you have an alternative. Public support for Bitcoin is surging, as is support for the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve.
Sell them into Bitcoin, for example. That way, we wouldn't have to use any new dollar.
Wall Street support is also increasing.
I personally and truly believe, I absolutely think that Bitcoin is legitimate.
And the President of the United States says
Never sell your Bitcoin, right?
That's why we're entering year one of the crypto renaissance, and you have a choice to make. Cling to the past or embrace the future. Divest billions of dollars and slow your growth rate. Invest billions of dollars and accelerate your growth rate.
Metaplanet has now said, after their purchases of $2, $3, and $4 million in Bitcoin, that they see themselves as a Bitcoin treasury company and, of course, want to build it up that way. They want to issue and sell 555 million shares, similar to MicroStrategy. They issue shares or take on debt to quickly raise money and then pay back their investors over the years. And many of MicroStrategy's debts don't have to be repaid until 2027, 2028, or 2029. And now Metaplanet is doing the same thing with the 555 million shares. Do you remember the numbers from earlier, the 3 million and the 2.1 million? They have announced that they now want to raise $5.44 billion to buy Bitcoin. And you don't just jump from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million to 5.4 billion without knowing something, without having insider knowledge. The risk is way too high. It's one thing if you take on debt and owe someone 1.2 million or 1.28 million. It's something completely different when it's 100 million. And it's something else entirely if you owe $1 billion, but raising 5.4 billion to buy more Bitcoin is really insane. You have to know something that others don't. Their goal now is to accumulate 210,000 Bitcoin in the next 1.5 years. That's 1% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist. And the CEO of Metaplanet has also explicitly said that they are copying and will continue to copy MicroStrategy.
After the next person, you have a common vision in mind. And so we were inspired by the strategy and began executing it last year. And now, especially in Asia, we're constantly being approached by other companies who want to have conversations, who want to understand the playbook, who want to know what the pitfalls might be, how to explain it to their boards, and who to surround themselves with to ensure a smoother path forward. So I think this is just the beginning. This is, perhaps in the Japanese context, the beginning of a tidal wave of more and more corporations around the world adopting Bitcoin. I think it would be irresponsible for companies not to look at Bitcoin and not to purchase Bitcoin for their balance sheets. And time will tell which ones are the last to come to the table.
And do you realize how crazy this all is? These companies are buying so much Bitcoin that the average person couldn't even afford a fraction of it. It really feels like they have some kind of insider knowledge or some trick that allows them to make these massive investments. One thing is certain, something strange is happening in the background. And this is no joke. Something really strange is going on. Someone knows something and something is about to happen. It will be in the news soon. I'm pretty sure of that. Someone is accumulating something, maybe buying Bitcoin, and maybe it will be a big company. You don't just raise the stakes like that. No matter how much you believe in something, you only do that when you know for sure that it's really going to happen and that you'll get your money back. And I'll keep telling you this until it's no longer true. Something very strange is happening right now. All the Bitcoin is being bought up by companies and institutions. And if you want to benefit from this and build financial independence through Bitcoin, click the link in the description below the video. Watch the video. It's free. It's important that you pay attention because most people in the world won't understand what's happening right now. But you probably will. Many large companies are buying Bitcoin. That means we should do the same. But if the average person can no longer afford even 0.0 Bitcoin, how are the other 4 billion or even 8 billion people in the world supposed to manage to maybe buy 0.001 Bitcoin? That's 100,000 Satoshis. And do you remember what I told you, that you're entering a world where people will brag about having 25,000, 30,000 or 50,000 Satoshis? Because that will be a lot of money then. And I hope that by then you'll be prepared and paying attention. And I wish you a wonderful day.